A couple days ago, I made a video about a comedian who made a pro-social justice joke. He made a joke about how it's not easy being black and gay, like intersectional feminism, and somebody got offended, and he got removed from the stage. And I thought it was funny that someone who was trying to say, hey, intersectional feminism is legit, offended intersectional feminists. We have another story, this from the College Fix. College cancels play by black playwright because it might harm black people. Says who? I think it's fair to say, I feel like this was really obvious. Listen, if you're offended by everything, how long until you offend yourself? How can you be offended by your own ideology? I have no idea, but I guess when your ideology is literally being offended at everything, there you go. They say, an elite liberal arts college known for disinviting speakers whose viewpoints offended students has canceled a play in progress because it made student cast members uncomfortable. The visiting professor, who was directing Beast Thing, Shayok Misha Chowdhury, withdrew himself as a candidate for a tenure-track position in the theater department because of the climate exposed by the cancellation of the play. In a Facebook post after the play's cancellation, Chowdhury said the conversation about care and trauma on campus was resulting in artists of color like himself being silenced and pushed away from campus. He plans to stay on the faculty for the rest of the year to encourage a culture where creation is valued as highly as critique. This is a black playwright saying that these conversations from the regressive left are resulting in artists of color like him being silenced and pushed away from the campus. So listen, not only did we have a story about a pro-intersectional feminist offending intersectional feminists with a joke that was in favor of their own ideology, we now have a black playwright saying playwrights of color are being negatively impacted by these conversations. I think it's fair to say we've come full circle, that the regressive left is now removing people of color because the comedian who was removed from stage was actually, I believe he was Indian. So you're removing performers and artists of color because they're offending you with your own ideology. It's really rather fantastic because I'm exaggerating, I'm being sarcastic, but I feel like it was entirely predictable. They say, while some cast members said they were upset that a majority of cast members ended up being white, Chowdhury wrote that he heard the play's content would disturb and harm audience members, students of color in particular. I'll make another point. When words are violence, at what point do you make more words violence, right? So obviously, hate speech to these people is violence. But what about when you expand what hate speech is, right? If it's hate speech to say, I think this group are stupid, or this group of people are inherently stupid. Okay, hate speech. What if you say, I believe people in general are stupid, right? At what point does hate speech, like how do you can expand the definition of hate speech continually to the point where a black playwright making a play about, I don't know what the play's about necessarily, but it's disturbing and harming audience members, students of color in particular. I'd also be interested I would be interested to hear the race of the people who are removing this man, because I'd be willing to bet, and I could be wrong, I'd be willing to bet it's white, upper middle class progressives, as it tends to be, and telling a person of color, but maybe I'm wrong, maybe there are other people of color, but I think it's fair to say, even in that capacity, if you have, black administrators telling a black man you're going to harm black people, then you have a clash of cultures. The college community seems eager to move beyond the controversy. The administration, the theater department, and Chowdhury did not respond to multiple inquiries throughout November and the first week of December from the College Fix. Beast Thing playwright Alicia Harris, who won an American Playwriting Foundation Award in 2016, declined to comment. Williams College graduate Zachary Wood, who started the school's viewpoint diversity group, Uncomfortable Learning, responded to an initial query but not follow-up requests for an interview. The controversy is reminiscent of a situation at Washington State University nearly 15 years ago. Before I move on, I want to make a point about a video I'm not doing, but Vox has an article up about affirmative action. And yes, let me relate these things. In the video, they talk about how diversity there is proven to increase critical thought. That's what they say. The problem is, what about diversity makes people more likely to solve problems and think differently? Diversity of opinion, literally diversity of thought. What ends up happening is these regressive racists embrace diversity of skin color and not diversity of thought, and in essence start dumbing things down. Look, I gotta say, if you advocate for diversity and then start removing people of color like comedians who agree with you and playwrights of color, you do not believe in diversity. And if you don't agree in diversity of thought and opinion, you really don't believe in diversity, because that's what the left likes to tout as the benefit of diversity. Quite literally, I will say this: diversity is a good thing. That means diversity of everything, right? Diversity of thought. And there's limits on that, because obviously, two things can be bad for each other. If you're going to set up a, terrarium, actually, let me use this reference. There's a Far Side comic, and two giant aliens are looking down at a terrarium where a grizzly bear is eating a human. And the other alien looks to the one alien and says, "You've put incompatible species, you fool, you've put incompatible species in the same terrarium." Right. There is a point at which diversity can be bad. But there is also a point where homogenization is bad, which means there's a happy medium. You want to maintain diversity, which especially includes diversity of thought, and you want to avoid homogenization, and you also want to avoid the extremes, basically. There's this happy medium. What they tend to do is, they especially don't advocate for diversity of thought. They target people who think the wrong thing, or who perceivably think the wrong thing, or in this instance, I have no idea why a black playwright had his play canceled. Like, there's not even a thought in there, right? So back to the story they talk about from 15 years ago. They say, the public university paid for and trained students to disrupt a play written by a black student because it was politically incorrect, according to the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education. The incident was featured in the 2016 documentary, Can We Take a Joke? I want to jump back to the Hidden Tribes study, just for anybody who doesn't know about it. YouGov data from a group called, it's called More in Common, said, according to their research, 8% of the US are progressive activists, and the overwhelming majority are white, upper middle class progressives. They have an average salary above $100,000 a year. These are the people who do this. I don't know who organized the, shutting down and paying students to be trained to disrupt a play written by a black student, but for some reason, when you see Antifa, when you see them showing up and disrupting, it's typically upper middle class white kids. Like, that's what Occupy Wall Street had a big problem with trust fund babies. There were a lot of activists at Occupy. They were trust fund kids, not all of them, but they were there. And Vice, the CEO of Vice, Shane Smith, said that Vice is a daycare for trustafarians, I think he called them, right? So they say, we'll move on with the story. It says, multiplicity of potential traumas for the audience. The Williams Theater Department issued a cryptic explanation for the cancellation of the darkly comedic play, which was scheduled to debut November 9th, in a note on the event page. Alicia Harris has written an extraordinary play in progress that explores vital questions about the legacies of violence that formed the United States and continue to ghost its contemporary epoch. It read, as the artistic and production team moved through the creative process, the material provoked extensive and necessary internal conversations. Students in the cast expressed a desire not to move forward with the project, and we have decided to cancel the scheduled performances. The play description warned potential patrons that it deals with abjection and settler violence, and includes gun violence, self-harm, nooses and hanging, animal cruelty, silhouetted nudity, sex acts, and infant death. It centers around a ghost town paying for the sins it tried to hide. That sounds like any horror movie. I'm like, isn't American Horror Story, doesn't have all of those things in it as well? The theater department canceled Beast Things November 1st following a line of choices made by Chowdhury, which made several cast members uncomfortable, according to the Williams record. So I think it's fair to say, in this story, we have a playwright of color who wanted to express themselves and is now denied because he could offend people of color. When you offend yourself, you have a problem, right? Sometimes things are offensive. Sometimes they're shocking. The reality should be, if you don't like it, just don't go. But to outright cancel the event. But it really does sound like cast members didn't want to do this to the play either. So now you have an inherent problem. I feel like in the future, there's going to be a bunch of people who just outright refuse to do things out of a fear of offending someone else, no matter how innocuous the job may be. You get offered a job at McDonald's as a burger flipper. Ooh, you might offend the vegans. Oh, working at McDonald's might be offensive because it's a massive corporation. And people are going to say, look, man, I don't want to do it. You've got people who, and I think this is fair to say, right? There are probably people associated with the cast who are like, man, if people get offended at this play and I'm in it, they're going to get mad at me, right? And the more you push this regressive ideology, the worse it's going to get, in my opinion. So the violence in this play was unnecessary. Abigail Stark Murray, assistant stage manager, told The Record. When the purpose of the violence was questioned, no one, not even the director, had an answer. Violence without a purpose should not have to be performed by anyone and should not have to be experienced by anyone. Oh my God. Oh, it's a play, it's fiction. Sometimes there's things in fiction that don't make sense. Did you know there was a cartoon about a teacher in a magic school bus? How did the school bus have magic powers? I have no idea. Not everything in fiction needs to be explained if you're just trying to express something. But you can see now that people associated with the theater department were being offended because they couldn't explain the continuity of the play. Heavens. Well, I don't want to read through all the rest of it, but we'll just go to the conclusion. They say, the theater department has an obligation to be welcoming of all identities and to represent those identities in ways that are not tokenizing or harmful, according to the editorial. It is disappointing and counterproductive for the cast, the creative team, and the campus as a whole that this revolutionary work by a playwright of color did not find an audience here at the college. It's a damn shame. But what can you expect? It's only going to get worse. We are in the dystopia. Like, seriously? I don't know, whatever. I got more videos on this channel. Stick around. They'll be up in a few minutes.